All right, so picture this. It's 1890, right? The Wild West, gunfights, cowboys, the whole scene. But what if I told you that this wasn't just some dusty frontier town, but like a full-blown spectacle playing to packed houses all over America and Europe even?
Well, you're talking about Buffalo Bill's Wild West, of course.
Exactly, Buffalo Bill's Wild West. And the thing is, it wasn't just entertainment. It was like this whole reflection of a pivotal moment in American history.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Buffalo Bill's rise to fame coincided almost perfectly with the official closing of the frontier. Which, speaking of, you've given me a ton of amazing material on this, from like firsthand accounts to Turner's frontier thesis. It's a lot to unpack.
Oh yeah, definitely. Our mission, I guess, is to kind of sift through all this to see how this turning point, the closing of the frontier, impacted so many different folks and how it all played out. And I think it's pretty interesting that you had folks captivated by this romanticized version of the West, the cowboys and Indians and all that. But the reality for many Native Americans was actually, well,
Yeah, pretty grim.
yeah, grim, a far cry from the entertainment on stage.
It really is crucial to acknowledge the very real tragedies that unfolded during this period. And you've included some really impactful stuff on Wounded Knee, an event that, well, even now, it symbolizes the brutal conflicts of this era.
Absolutely. The podcast episode, it paints a chilling picture. Hundreds of Lakota Sioux, most of them women and children, massacred by the U.S. Army December of 1890. This wasn't just a battle. It was a horrific act of violence that essentially marked the end of, well, decades of broken treaties, forced assimilation, you name it.
And to understand the full scope, you got to look at the systematic erosion of Native American life that led up to it. I mean, take the Dawes Act of 1887, for example. It aimed to integrate Native Americans on paper by granting them individual land ownership. But what it really did was it resulted in the loss of millions of acres of tribal land, completely dismantling their way of life.
It's almost like I don't know, like a double whammy, right? You got the Dawes Act taking their land, and then on top of that, the near extinction of the buffalo, which for them was their source of everything: food, clothing, shelter, everything.
Absolutely. And from that desperation arose the ghost dance movement, the spiritual practice that promised the return of the buffalo, the restoration of their lands, their traditional ways. It's really a powerful testament to their resilience, don't you think?
Oh, definitely. And it's important to note, and I think you mentioned this in your notes, that the ghost dance was completely nonviolent, but the U.S. government perceived it as a threat, which unfortunately led to the arrest and death of Sitting Bull just weeks before Wounded Knee.
Yeah, which really highlights the fear and misunderstanding that fueled a lot of the conflict. And, those same feelings, the fear and misunderstanding, often fed into the narratives you'd see in popular entertainment back then. Like, for example, Buffalo Bill's Wild West.
Right, right. It did bring Native American performers onto, well, a global stage, I guess. But it simplified, romanticized, and often just plain misrepresented their cultures and history, didn't it?
Oh, without a doubt.
And it's kind of wild to imagine the spectacle of it all.
Yeah.
Sharpshooting exhibitions, staged battles, this romanticized vision of cowboys and Indians, and then you have figures like Sitting Bull and Annie Oakley, these living legends taking part in this manufactured version of the West.
It's true, and Sitting Bull's involvement is especially interesting to me. Here's a man who spent years resisting the U.S. government, yet he chooses to join the show. It was, well, a calculated decision, of course. He was using it to advocate for his people, challenge stereotypes, and maybe even reclaim some agency in a world that was rapidly changing around him.
And then there's Annie Oakley, this sharpshooting marvel, defying expectations, breaking gender norms with her incredible talent and stage presence. Can you imagine what it must have been like for the audience to see this, petite woman outshooting her male counterparts?
It was a sight to behold, that's for sure. But Annie Oakley's story is, well, it's complicated. She defied expectations, became a symbol of female strength, but she was also operating within a system that, frankly, often exploited Native Americans for the sake of entertainment. It raises some tough questions about the ethical choices facing those who participated in these shows.
Oh, yeah, it's a moral gray area for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, for some Native Americans, Wild West shows provided a platform, a source of income, even a way to connect with audiences. But for others, it just perpetuated harmful stereotypes and romanticized a past that was far from their reality.
And it brings us to a crucial question. What were the alternatives? Many Native Americans were simply denied basic rights and opportunities, which honestly left them with very few options. So their participation, which was often born out of necessity, adds a layer of complexity to how we understand this period.
It's a stark reminder that the closing of the frontier wasn't just some, historical event, but a real turning point that had a huge, lasting impact on countless individuals and communities. It's a story of resilience, adaptation, and the fight to preserve your cultural identity in the face of massive change.
And that change was on full display at the 1893 Columbian Exposition in Chicago. While Buffalo Bill's show was captivating audiences with this vision of the Wild West, the exposition was showcasing America's, well, its technological prowess, a celebration of progress, you could say. It's a really fascinating juxtaposition that reveals the competing narratives of this era, I think.
Yeah. And you mentioned Frederick Jackson Turner, who presented his frontier thesis at the exposition. This idea, that the frontier experience shaped American democracy, individualism, it became hugely influential. But did it really tell the whole story? I mean,
That's where things get interesting. While Turner was celebrating the frontier's impact on American identity, his thesis completely overlooked the experiences of those who were, well, marginalized and excluded from this narrative of progress.
and that's where Frederick Douglass's powerful speech at the exposition comes in. He directly challenged the notion of universal progress, didn't he?
Absolutely. Speaking on Jubilee Day, which was specifically designated for Black Americans at the exposition, Douglass delivered this scathing critique of the nation's hypocrisy, highlighting the ongoing struggle for racial equality and reminding everyone that real progress requires justice and inclusion for everyone.
His speech, along with the writings of Native American intellectuals like Simon Pokagon, his Red Man's Rebuke, these were powerful counter-narratives to the dominant narrative of American exceptionalism.
Exactly.
And they remind us that the closing of the frontier wasn't a single shared experience, but a multifaceted event with long-lasting consequences for all sorts of communities.
It really makes you think about whose voices are amplified and whose are silenced when we tell these stories, doesn't it? And how can we reconcile these different perspectives to get a more complete and accurate picture of the past?
It's clear that the closing of the frontier, it wasn't just an ending. It was more of a transformation, a time of both progress and tremendous loss, a story that continues to shape American identity to this day. And that legacy is exactly what we're going to dig into after a quick break. We'll explore how the closing of one frontier actually led to the opening of others and how the spirit of exploration and innovation continues to shape America today. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
It really was a turning point, wasn't it? The closing of the frontier. I mean, it wasn't just about physical boundaries disappearing, but about these new frontiers popping up.
New frontiers? Like, what do you mean?
Well, frontiers of ideas, technology, social change, you name it.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that drive to explore, to push boundaries.
Mhm.
It didn't just vanish. It kind of got channeled into different arenas, right? Like when you think about it, the late 19th and early 20th centuries saw this explosion of industrialization and urbanization.
Exactly. Cities became these hubs of innovation and opportunity. People flocked from rural areas, and it sparked some truly incredible advancements.
Yeah, it's like that frontier spirit got a makeover. Instead of conquering the wilderness, it was all about conquering the challenges of modern life, building skyscrapers, harnessing electricity, connecting the nation with railroads. It's amazing.
It really is. It's like the frontier spirit adapted to a new era.
And of course, those advancements came with their own set of challenges, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you had the rise of industrial capitalism, creating wealth disparities, labor struggles, and a growing awareness of the need for social reforms.
Absolutely. So you could say the closing of the frontier didn't actually put an end to American expansion and exploration. It just shifted the focus. Instead of being about geography, it became more about ideas, progress, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in science, technology, society as a whole.
That's a really interesting way to put it. It makes me wonder how this shift impacted people's sense of identity. I mean, if the frontier was so tied to American ideas of individualism and self-reliance, how did its closing reshape those ideals?
That's a great question. And it's one that historians are still debating today. Some argue that it led to this wave of nostalgia, this longing for a simpler time when individuals could forge their own destinies out in the wilderness. Others suggest that it actually fueled a new kind of ambition, this drive to succeed in the booming cities and industries of the new century.
It's fascinating to consider both sides of that coin. And of course, we can't forget that this whole narrative of progress and opportunity wasn't equally accessible to everyone. The experiences of African Americans, Native Americans, immigrant communities, they often stood in stark contrast to that idealized image of the frontier.
You're absolutely right. We can't talk about the legacy of the frontier without acknowledging the inequalities and injustices that persisted. The closing of the physical frontier didn't magically erase the social and economic barriers faced by marginalized groups.
It's like we're witnessing multiple frontiers unfolding at the same time. The frontier of technological advancement, the frontier of social change, the frontier of expanding rights and opportunities for all Americans. And these frontiers, they're all intertwined, sometimes clashing and constantly evolving.
And that brings us to another crucial point, the importance of perspective in understanding history. The closing of the frontier, like any historical event, wasn't a one-size-fits-all experience. It was shaped by a multitude of perspectives, motivations, and consequences.
Yeah, and the sources you shared really highlight that on one hand, you have Frederick Jackson Turner praising the frontier's role in shaping American democracy. And on the other hand, you have Frederick Douglass and Simon Pokagon challenging the exclusionary nature of that narrative and demanding equal rights for all.
It's a reminder that history is never simple or straightforward. It's about understanding the complexities and contradictions, the triumphs and tragedies that make up the human experience.
And that's where sources like that podcast episode you sent become so valuable. It's not just about recounting events, but about delving into those personal stories, hearing the voices of the people who lived through this period and whose experiences were often overlooked or silenced.
Exactly. It's through those personal stories that history comes alive, that we connect with the past on an emotional level and gain a deeper appreciation for the human cost of progress, the resilience of those who faced adversity, and the enduring legacy of the frontier spirit in all its complexity.
Makes you think, doesn't it? What frontiers are we facing today? Are there any parallels to the challenges and opportunities of the past?
That's a fantastic question, and I think it deserves some serious thought. I mean, we may not be settling uncharted territories in the traditional sense, but there are definitely new frontiers out there in science, technology, even social justice that challenge us to explore, innovate, and push the boundaries of what we know.
I like that. Like space exploration, artificial intelligence, the fight for climate justice.
Yeah.
It does feel like we're on the brink of so many monumental shifts.
Absolutely. And just like the pioneers of the past, we're navigating uncharted waters, facing ethical dilemmas, and adapting to a world that's changing at an incredible pace.
It's daunting, but also exhilarating. There's that sense of opportunity, that drive to explore the unknown and push the limits of what's possible. It's that spirit of innovation and resilience that connects us to the legacy of the frontier.
And that's what makes exploring this topic so compelling. It's not just about looking back. It's about understanding how the past informs our present and shapes our future.
For me, it's the complex legacies of figures like Sitting Bull and Annie Oakley that really stand out. They navigated a world in transition, making tough choices and challenging norms in their own unique ways. What about you?
I'm captivated by those clashing narratives of progress and loss that surround the closing of the frontier. It's a reminder that history is rarely black and white. It's full of contradictions, complexities, and competing perspectives that we need to engage with.
It's a reminder that the conversation continues. And we encourage you, our listeners, to delve deeper into these stories and the legacies of this transformative period in American history. Explore the lives of Sitting Bull, Annie Oakley, Frederick Douglass, and the countless others who shaped this era.
And as you do that, think about the frontiers you encounter in your own lives. The ways in which that spirit of exploration and resilience continues to shape the world around us.
Yeah, it really makes you think, what are the frontiers of today? I mean, we're not exactly, setting up shop on Mars or anything.
It's a powerful idea, though, isn't it? That sense of venturing into the unknown, of pushing the limits, and ultimately changing our world. And even though we might not be dealing with those same physical frontiers, I think that spirit of exploration is still very much alive.
Absolutely. I mean, think about, like, scientific discovery,
Yeah.
gene editing, artificial intelligence, trying to wrap our heads around the universe, all that. We're constantly pushing the boundaries of what we know and challenging what we thought was possible.
And all those advancements, while exciting, they also bring up new questions, new ethical dilemmas. Like, how do we use these technologies responsibly? How do we deal with the potential consequences, the good and the bad? Those are the kinds of frontiers we're dealing with now.
It's like the frontier spirit has I don't know, evolved. It's not about conquering physical space anymore. It's about conquering these intellectual and technological challenges, finding solutions to global problems.
Right. And let's not forget about the frontier of social change, too. Fighting for equality, for justice, for a more inclusive society, those are all ongoing frontiers that need, well, the same kind of courage and vision that those pioneers had back then.
And what's interesting is how all these different frontiers, they kind of intersect. Take climate change, for example. It's a scientific challenge, a technological challenge, and a social challenge all at once. We need scientific innovation to understand it, technological innovation for solutions, and social innovation to change how we act and what policies we make.
And that's where the lessons from the past can, I think, guide us now. Just like those pioneers, we have to adapt, we have to collaborate, and we have to innovate to tackle the challenges ahead.
What I find really inspiring is how when one frontier closes, it seems like another one opens up.
Mm-hmm.
It's this constant cycle of exploring, discovering, reinventing. I don't know, it's almost like it's built into us as humans.
And that's what I love about diving into these topics. It's not just about looking back. It's about seeing how the past shapes us today, how it influences the future. It shows us that the frontier spirit isn't tied to one specific place or time. It's part of who we are.
So as we wrap up here, I'm curious, what resonated most with you from all this, from exploring the closing of the frontier? Was there a particular story, a person, or something you learned that really stuck with you?
For me, it's realizing that history isn't ever really over and done with. It's this ongoing conversation, a way of looking back and finding new meaning. The closing of the frontier with all its twists and turns, it really drives that home for me.
Well said. And to our listeners, we encourage you to keep digging into the stories from this time, the legacies of this huge turning point in American history. Learn more about Sitting Bull, Annie Oakley, Frederick Douglass, all those who shaped this era. And as you do, think about the frontiers that you face in your own lives and how that spirit of exploration, that resilience is still shaping our world today.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's made you curious and maybe inspired you to keep exploring the frontiers that are still out there.
Until next time, keep asking questions, keep challenging what you think you know, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Thanks for listening.